Test, 1, 2, okay. All right, good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. The time is 6:20 p.m. Sorry about the slight delay. My name is Charles Gary. I'm a Deputy General Counsel at the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, also known as the MTA. I have been designated as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. Joining us both on Zoom and in person for tonight's hearing are other staff members from the MTA and MTA Construction and Development. They include Neil Mastro-Pietro, Deputy Director, Real Estate Transactions, Angela Zhu, Associate Director, Real Estate Transactions, Bradley Knott, Deputy Project Manager, MTA C&D, and Joseph O'Donnell, Director of Public Affairs, MTA C&D, who's sitting next to me. In addition to the in-person format of this public hearing, we are also using Zoom's online platform and call-in features for those members of the public who are with us in a remote capacity. Everyone who wishes to speak at tonight's hearing has signed up in advance through the website provided on the hearing notice. If there is anyone present who wishes to speak but is not yet registered, you may do so by one of the three following contactless registration options: by scanning the QR code with your smartphone or device, by calling the public hearing hotline at 646-252-6777, or by using the iPad outside until 6:30 p.m. this evening. This is a public hearing under Article 2 of the New York State Eminent Domain Procedure Law. The topic of tonight's public hearing is MTA's proposed acquisition of property interests that will be required in order for MTA and MTA Construction and Development to undertake and complete various elements of the Penn Station Access Project, hereinafter referred to as the project. Under the United States and New York constitutions, the government has the right to acquire private property for public uses, provided that the government pays just compensation for the property that it acquires. That power is called eminent domain or condemnation. MTA is a New York public benefit corporation that was created by the state legislature and has been granted the right to acquire property by condemnation for transportation projects like the project. The fact that we are holding a public hearing under eminent domain procedure law tonight does not automatically mean that MTA will condemn all property interests needed for this project. MTA hopes to acquire as many property interests as it can through negotiated agreements with property owners. However, MTA simply may not be able to reach agreements with some property owners and will be compelled to acquire those property interests by condemnation. New York law provides many rights and protections for owners whose property interests are acquired by condemnation, including the right to receive just compensation and file claims for additional compensation. Tonight's hearing is the beginning, not the end of that process. In each instance where an agreement is not reached with the property owner, MTA will provide additional notices and information to the owner prior to starting any formal legal proceeding to condemn the required property interest. The hearing format. As required under the eminent domain procedure law, this hearing will inform the public about the project, particularly the work and property requirements for construction of the project, review the public use, benefit, and purpose to be served by the project and by the proposed property acquisitions, and describe the general impact on the environment and surrounding communities. MTA published notice of this public hearing in the New York Daily News from May 30th through June 3rd, 2022. MTA also mailed by certified and regular mail notices of this hearing to affected owners in the project area, including easement holders and mortgagees. The hearing notices to property owners also contained a map indicating the proposed property interests to be acquired at each addressee's location. MTA also notified public officials of tonight's hearing. This hearing is being recorded, and a transcript of the recording will be made. For those of you who wish to submit a written statement, I request, if you have not already done so, please do so by visiting https://new.mta.info/pen-access-hearing. And that should go up on the screen if the PowerPoint is working. The hearing notice also, for submission of written statements by regular mail, please address to MTA Government and Community Relations, re Penn Station Access Project, 2 Broadway, B 20.81, New York, New York 10004. The hearing notice also provided instruction for members of the public who are blind, low vision, or hard of hearing or require translation to contact the public hearing hotline at 646-252-6777 in advance of tonight's hearing in order for the MTA to provide accommodations for CART captioning and American Sign Language interpreters who are available at this hearing. To access captioning at the bottom of your screen, please select CC. You will be able to turn on or enlarge the captions based on your preference. Users will not need to adjust their screens to see ASL. The ground rules for this hearing are as follows. First, I will make my presentation. Then we will call on each person who has registered to speak. For those registered speakers on Zoom, I ask that each speaker, when called upon, allow 10 seconds for a brief transition, after which the speaker will be able to turn on their camera and microphone to speak. We also will keep a record of this hearing open until 5:30 p.m. on July 8th, 2022, for the purpose of receiving additional written comments. The nature and format of this hearing, as well as time constraints, do not permit me or other project representatives to answer questions raised by public speakers. Upon request, MTA can provide contact information for key personnel through MTA Construction and Development's Community Outreach Team, whom you may contact with questions after the hearing. I ask that all speakers limit their remarks to a time period of 3 minutes or less so that all speakers may be heard. Please note that an auditory signal, this is for both the Zoom and in person, please note that an auditory signal will be played to alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left to conclude their statement. Keep in mind that MTA will be accepting the written comments until 5:30 p.m. on July 8th, 2022, so that everyone will have a fair opportunity to have their comments made part of the hearing record. So now I would like to spend a few minutes describing the project. Is the PowerPoint working, by the way? Okay, so the project. Back in 1999, Metro North initiated the PSA, Penn Station Access, Major Investment Study, Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or DEIS, to evaluate options for improving access between Penn Station, New York, and existing Metro North service. The Major Investment Study effort included development and evaluation of a long list of multimodal alternatives, including rail, bus, and ferry. As part of the study, over 20 new potential station locations were considered and screened. In 2002, MTA published the PSA Comparative Screening Results Report, which included New Haven Line service via Amtrak's Hellgate Line, or HGL, with 3 new Metro North stations in the eastern Bronx. Between 2002 and 2009, Metro North continued PSA project planning and environmental analysis. In 2012, as part of the ongoing environmental process, MTA conducted outreach to the local communities that the Penn Station Access project would affect, with special attention paid to those communities in the Bronx where the new stations were proposed along HGL. Based on input received from the local communities, Metro North proposed a fourth new station at Morris Park. In 2015, Amtrak, MTA, with Metro North and Long Island Railroad executed a planning phase agreement that committed them to working cooperatively in order to progress the conceptual planning of the Penn Station Access project. To that end, between 2015 and 2019, MTA conducted conceptual engineering and operations analyses to identify and refine improvements along the Hellgate Line that would be necessary to implement New Haven Line service to Penn Station, New York. On February 11th, 2019, Amtrak, MTA, MTA Capital Construction, and Metro North executed a memorandum of understanding for the parties to fully design and construct the project. The Penn Station Access project is being designed largely within the Hellgate Line right-of-way, which will minimize the need to acquire private property for the project. However, some public and private property acquisitions along the project route are needed to construct and operate certain project elements. In almost all cases, MTA will need only partial acquisitions of a particular property. The key elements of the Penn Station Access project include construction of 4 new ADA-compliant Metro North stations, realignment of existing passenger tracks and catenary, and construction of new passenger tracks and catenary, realignment or removal of existing freight tracks and construction of new freight tracks, construction of interlockings, power supply and distribution systems, upgrade of the signal system, rehabilitation or replacement of railroad bridges at Bronxdale Avenue, Eastchester Road, Pelham Lane, and Pelham Lane Bridge, as well as the rehabilitation of the existing railroad bridge at the Bronx River with construction of a new single-track railroad bridge immediately north of the Bronx River Bridge. The project will also consist of an expansion of Metro North's New Rochelle Yard. Project location. The project's area of construction will begin at Shell Interlocking, which is abutting Metro North's New Rochelle Yard, and the location where the Hellgate Line and the New Haven Line diverge. The project will then continue west along the length of the Hellgate Line in the Bronx, entering Queens via the Hellgate Bridge, and meeting the Long Island Railroad main line at Harold Interlocking. The Hellgate Line was originally designed to hold 6 railroad tracks. Presently, Amtrak occupies 2 passenger tracks and CSX occupies 1 freight track. Therefore, the right-of-way along the project corridor has sufficient space to contain the various elements of the project. Again, however, MTA will require the acquisition of limited private property to implement the project. Design considerations will also be made to maximize efficient constructability to have the fewest impacts on existing operations. Note that tonight's public hearing covers the private property affected by the project. The design-build contract on December 29, 2021, the MTA board approved a design-build contract for the project. The design builder will design and construct additional passenger tracks, traction power substations, overhead contact systems, new interlockings, updated communication systems, and new signal system, all within Amtrak's right-of-way. The design-build contract also includes the design and construction of 4 new ADA-compliant Metro North stations, which I'm trying to depict on the PowerPoint if it was working. The design-build project schedule. Site surveys are ongoing and advanced design is underway. Construction will last approximately 4 to 5 years. There will be approximately 9 to 18 months of consistent station work at each station, and up to 24 months of work at each new substation, with shorter durations of work along the Hellgate Line, which could occur simultaneously. Access points and staging areas could be active for the duration of the project. The anticipated completion date for the project is 2027. The property acquisition needs. I will now describe the property acquisitions that will be required for the project. The specific locations of each property interest that MTA is including in tonight's hearing is listed in the public hearing notice referenced earlier and in information that previously was mailed to each affected owner. The fee interests. There are 3 properties that are necessary to be acquired in fee for the Hunts Point Station and Plaza and for the Van Nest substation. Those properties include Bronx Block 2741, Lot 50, also known as 1161 Garrison Avenue, which is a full fee simple acquisition for Hunts Point Station and Plaza. Bronx Block 4042, Lot 254, also known as 2015 East Tremont Avenue, full fee simple for the Van Nest AC substation. And Bronx Block 3910, Lot 36, Van Nest Avenue, full fee simple for signal and overhead catenary structure. For partial permanent easements. For those of you who may not be familiar with the term, an easement is a right to use somebody else's property for a stated purpose, such as for a work area or a right of access. Easements may be either permanent or temporary in nature. The project requires 25 permanent easements of varying property rights for Oak Substation, Bronx River Bridge access, and OCS in the Bronx, 48th Street Substation, and Gate Substation in Queens, as well as the New Rochelle Yard in Westchester County. The following are permanent easement acquisitions. Bronx Block 2599, part of Lot 1, Southern Boulevard, permanent easement for Oak Substation. Bronx Block 2599, part of Lot 89, also known as 400 Walnut Avenue, permanent easement for Oak Substation and non-exclusive access easement to Oak Substation. Bronx Block 2599, part of Lot 123, also known as 327 Walnut Avenue, permanent aerial easement for overhead wires at Oak Substation. Bronx Block 3017, part of Lot 28, also known as 1476 Sheridan Expressway, permanent non-exclusive access easement to the Bronx River Bridge. Bronx Block 4411, part of Lot 300, also known as 1770 Stillwell Avenue, permanent easement for OCS structure. Queens Block 120, part of Lot 50, also known as 50/02 Northern Boulevard, permanent easement for 48th Street Substation, and non-exclusive access easement to 48th Street Substation. Queens Block 1024, part of Lot 152, also known as 58-11 30th Avenue, permanent easement for Gate Substation, and exclusive and non-exclusive access easements for Gate Substation. Queens Block 1113, Lot 7501, 30-30 60th Street, also known as 57-07 31st Street, permanent exclusive and non-exclusive access easements for Gate Substation. Queens Block 1114, part of Lot 11, 60-01 31st Avenue, permanent non-exclusive access easement for Gate Substation. Westchester Block 238, part of Lot 10, also known as 171 Huguenot Street, and that's for the New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 238, part of Lot 20, 8 Commerce Drive, New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 238, part of Lot 21, 12 Commerce Drive, New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 250, part of Lot 1, 8 Joyce Road, New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 267, part of Lot 3, Oak Street, New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 267, part of Lot 15, 2525 Palmer Avenue, New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 267, part of Lot 30, 2533 Palmer Avenue, New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 308, part of Lot 29, 186 Lipsonard Avenue, New Rochelle Yard. Westchester Block 308, part of Lot 30, Oak Street, New Rochelle Yard. And finally, Westchester Block 310, part of Lot 20, 2425 Palmer Avenue for New Rochelle Yard. This concludes my summary of the private property interests that MTA will need for the Penn Station Access Project. Although subject to change, the MTA anticipates under the current project schedule that it will need to acquire the various property interests for implementation of the project between late 2023 and mid-2024. MTA also will discuss property acquisition and relocation requirements, benefits, and timeframes with all affected property owners and tenants, and will communicate updated information on scheduling when it becomes available. Displacement and relocation. For this project, in almost all cases, MTA will acquire only portions of the private lots described above, with no demolition or displacement of buildings, allowing the existing uses to continue. As the project design has advanced, the need for several businesses to be relocated has also been identified. These businesses may be eligible for relocation benefits and assistance under the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisitions Act, or URA. MTA and its representatives will provide detailed information on such benefits to these businesses as the project progresses. The public uses, benefits, and purposes of this project. I would like to describe now, the Penn Station Access Project will provide new one-seat passenger rail service to Penn Station, New York on the west side of Manhattan for Metro North New Haven Line commuters. The project will also construct 4 new Metro North stations in the Eastern Bronx at Hunts Point, Parkchester Van Nest, Morris Park, and Co-op City, areas currently underserved by mass transit. The project will greatly improve transit access for communities in the Eastern Bronx, including low-income and minority communities, saving riders traveling to Penn Station, New York, approximately 50 minutes. East Bronx travelers traveling to Connecticut could save up to approximately 75 minutes. Additionally, the new Metro North stations will provide better access to employment opportunities, shopping and entertainment, the enhancement of transportation options for residents, workers, and visitors, as well as create a more attractive environment for residential and commercial development in the future. The environmental impacts for the project. I would like to take a moment to describe the environmental reviews that have been performed for this project. As discussed earlier, on May 18, 2021, MTA posted the Penn Station Access Project's Environmental Assessment, or EA, on the project website, which is http://new.mta.info/project/Penn-station-access. The notice of availability of the EA, including notice of the public comment period and multilingual notice of the June 15, 2021 public meeting, was also posted on the project's website and in various other local sources for distribution. The public comment period for the EA extended from May 18, 2021 to July 3, 2021. Thereafter, on September 24, 2021, the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, issued a finding of no significant impact, or FONSI, F-O-N-S-I, for the Penn Station Access Project. Additionally, the Federal Railroad Administration, or FRA, issued a FONSI on November 16, 2021, concluding the environmental review for this project by recommending that the Penn Station Access Project as being the best alternative to satisfy the goals and objectives of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. I now will summarize the general environmental impacts of the Penn Station Access Project. Note that a complete description of the environmental impacts for the entire project is set forth in the environmental assessment, which is incorporated herein by reference. Note that the full EA and FONSI are available on MTA's website. The project will take place along the existing railroad right-of-way and will result in adverse impacts to only a select number of environmental technical areas, none of which will be significant and all of which will be temporary or which MTA will mitigate. The project will have no significant impacts on the following environmental technical areas: land use, zoning, and public policy, socioeconomic conditions, community facilities and services, visual resources, public open space and recreation, natural resources, air quality, energy, greenhouse gases, safety and security, and environmental justice. The following 6 environmental technical areas could have potential adverse impacts: historical resources, archaeological resources, Department of Transportation Act, Section 4F, transportation, noise and vibration, and contaminated materials. The project includes design elements to minimize the adverse impacts in these environmental technical areas. In addition, although construction will result in temporary impacts, they will not be significant. Historical resources. The Amtrak Hellgate Line bascule bridge over the Bronx River will be rehabilitated, and a new 2-span bridge will be constructed adjacent to it. The work will not alter the significant features of the original bridge, but will preserve and protect this historic resource by conducting the necessary upgrades that will allow it to continue to function, albeit in a somewhat modified form. The project could have visual effects on the Parkchester apartment complex due to the nearby Parkchester Van Ness station. The station and the facade for the Van Ness AC substation will incorporate contextually sensitive design elements into the architecture. A construction monitoring plan will be implemented to ensure there will be no adverse effect to the complex during construction. The project will expand the New Rochelle Yard in the vicinity of the Kaufman Building, but will have no adverse effect, and a monitoring plan will ensure the protection of that resource. The Pelham Lane Pathway Bridge in Pelham Bay Park was recently determined to be eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. The bridge is proposed to be rehabilitated or replaced. Replacement would have an adverse effect. However, MTA will explore alternatives to demolition and consult with the New York State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, SHPO, as described in the programmatic agreement, which is included as an appendix to the EA. Archaeological resources. The project could have an impact on potential archaeological resources in the corridor beneath 22 inches of ballast in areas where tracks are at grade elevation, including the Co-op City Station and Morris Park Station sites. Should design indicate that identified archaeologically sensitive deposits may be disturbed by the project, testing work plans will be developed and submitted to SHPO. Future steps to be taken to protect archaeological resources are set forth in the programmatic agreement for the project that has been executed by the FTA, SHPO, and the MTA. A copy of that programmatic agreement, again, is included as an appendix to the EA. Department of Transportation Act, Section 4F. Section 4F of the U.S. DOT Act of 1966 as amended, which is 23 CFR Part 774, codified in 49 U.S.C. 303 and generally referred to as Section 4F, prohibits the Secretary of Transportation from approving any program or project that requires the use of the following: any publicly owned parkland, recreational area, or wildlife and waterfowl refuge of national, state, or local significance, or any land from a historical site of national, state, or local significance, unless there is no feasible and prudent alternative to the use of such land, and such program or project includes all possible planning to minimize harm to the Section 4F properties. The PSA EA identifies Section 4F properties within the study area. This includes 33 publicly owned parkland and recreational areas, 1 wildlife refuge, and 10 historic architectural resources, describes the effect the project will have on those properties. Because the proposed easements within New York City parklands will not adversely change the activities, features, or properties of that resource, FTA has made a de minimis finding. However, the rehabilitation or replacement of the Pelham Lane Pathway Bridge will result in a permanent use of Section 4F resource, As outlined in the FONSI and the programmatic agreement, MTA will follow the process for resolution of adverse effects. MTA will consult with SHPO regarding minimization or mitigation measures with regard to the rehabilitation or replacement of the Pelham Lane Pathway Bridge. Transportation. Traffic. While the project would result in an increase of more than 10 seconds of delay at 2 locations, which are 8th Avenue and West 33rd Street, and Morris Park Avenue and Eastchester Road in the morning, the project's overall traffic increases would not result in adverse traffic impacts. Parking. Consistent with Metro North policy for urban stations, the project will not include new parking spaces. No parking impacts are expected in the Penn Station, New York area or in the vicinity of any of the new Bronx stations. At stations north of the Bronx, any increased parking demand will be addressed by local municipalities through additional parking structures or by encouraging alternative modes of transportation to stations. Transit. Ridership is forecast to increase on the 7th Avenue and 8th Avenue subway lines in Penn Station, New York, and on the 5 bus routes serving the Penn Station, New York area. However, existing subway and bus services would adequately accommodate Metro North passengers making connections via transit with no adverse impact to such services. At the proposed Bronx stations, current bus and subway services would adequately accommodate increased ridership. New York City Transit will address any future capacity or service deficiencies in its system-wide planning and programming. Rail operations. The project will not result in any adverse impacts to Amtrak's operation along the Hellgate line or at Penn Station, New York. Overall, commuter and intercity passenger rail operations for the area will largely be improved by the additional track flexibility constructed as part of the project. Pedestrians. MTA expects no pedestrian-related impacts for sidewalks surrounding the proposed stations because the additional pedestrian trips to and from the proposed stations will be dispersed over multiple blocks at each location. MTA will employ extensive community outreach programs throughout the construction period, to keep the affected neighborhoods informed about construction activities taking place. MTA will use the outreach program to work closely with business organizations, community groups, schools, houses of worship, and other organizations to share information about project-related construction activities. Noise and vibration. The project will increase ambient noise levels by 1 to 4 decibels over existing levels and create significant noise impacts at 17 buildings, totaling 34 dwelling units, and moderate impacts at 270 buildings, containing 765 dwelling units, which are all along the Hellgate Line corridor. Severe impacts will be abated by a noise barrier at 7 buildings where space is available for installation. At the remaining 10 buildings with significant impacts, for all existing windows on building facades that have visual exposure to the tracks, replacement soundproof windows will be offered. The project will create vibration impacts at 40 buildings, consisting of a total of 84 dwelling units along the Hellgate Line corridor. Vibration impacts will be abated by using under-rail pads and resilient fasteners in track construction. Contaminated materials. During construction, some contaminated materials may be encountered in the station areas and Hellgate Line corridor caused by historic rail operations, spills, and historical site uses. Discovery of existing groundwater contamination caused by petroleum products and chlorinated solvents is possible based on the historical use of the subject sites and neighboring properties. Lead-based paint, asbestos-containing material, and mold may also be present on existing structures, including bridges undergoing rehabilitation. Appropriate measures will be taken to protect human health during construction activities. The results of the subsurface investigation and any additional investigations performed by the design builder during final design will be used to prepare site-specific health and safety plans and hazardous material management plans. Overall, MTA anticipates environmental contamination to be low to moderate for this project, but some remediation may be necessary. General disruption associated with construction. Construction of the project would result in temporary effects along the railroad right-of-way and in areas adjacent to sections of the right-of-way where passenger stations, bridge modifications, and other project elements are proposed. The Hellgate Line was originally designed to hold 6 railroad tracks and is now occupied by 2 Amtrak tracks and 1 CSX freight track, as I mentioned before. Therefore, the right-of-way has plenty of space for the majority of the project elements. To help minimize potential impacts, MTA will make every reasonable effort to maintain access, control dust, noise and vibration, screen construction activities, control rodents and pests, and minimize other disruptions where practicable. MTA's goal here is to create an active program of construction security and quality of life controls to ensure community safety. With property acquisition. With respect to the property acquisitions that I have discussed earlier, within 90 days of the conclusion of this hearing, in other words, 90 days from July 8th, 2022, the MTA board will make its determination and findings concerning the proposed property acquisitions I have described at tonight's hearing. MTA will publish a synopsis of the determination and findings and will provide a copy of the full determination and findings free of charge upon written request. Also, MTA will mail certified mail copies of the determination and findings to all private property owners affected by the project, including mortgagees. In addition, and upon request, a copy of the record of this hearing will be made available electronically without charge. In the near future, MTA anticipates making written offers of just compensation to each property owner with a compensable interest in the property to be acquired. Where offers are made, the offers will represent, by law, 100% of MTA's highest approved appraisal for that particular property interest. In accordance with the eminent domain procedure law, each property owner will have the option of accepting the offer as payment in full or accepting the offer as an advance payment, reserving its rights to seek additional sums through negotiation or court proceedings. Conclusion. This concludes my prepared statement, and I thank you for your patience in sitting through it. I'll now turn the hearing over to Joe O'Donnell, who's sitting next to me, MTA's Construction and Development Director of Public Affairs, for the public speakers.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. In order to permit all registered speakers an opportunity to speak before the hour becomes too late, we ask that you limit your remarks to a maximum time limit of 3 minutes. I ask that each speaker, when called, will allow 10 seconds for a brief transition, after which the speaker will be able to turn on their camera and unmute their microphone. Please note that an auditory signal will be played to alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left to conclude their remarks. In the event that your name is called and you are not present, we will call your name again at the end of the list of all pre-registered speakers. When you begin speaking, please provide your name and any affiliation you wish to announce so that we have it for the record. I should also point out that if your name is appearing as a number or something other than what you use to register to speak, please kindly let us know your name in the Q&A so that you can be allowed to turn your microphone and camera on. Our first speaker this evening is Joe Rogers. Mr. Rogers? No? Our second speaker, Majora Carter.
Good evening. My name is Majora Carter, and I'm a lifelong resident and business owner in the Hunts Point community. As the owner of the Majora Carter Group, a Black woman-owned business, I'm one of the very few local business owners and real estate developers born, raised, and still living in Hunts Point. My father was a Pullman porter in the mid-20th century, and in pursuit of our family's American dream, he was among the first Black people to purchase a home in Hunts Point in the 1940s. He did so in the hopes that the former New York-New Haven line would reopen. It never did, and our family watched as the neighborhood went into decline as a result of policies rooted in systemic racism, such as financial disinvestment, white flight, and insensitive highway construction as it continued in the South Bronx. For more than 2 decades, I've gone to great lengths to improve the quality of life in Hunts Point, from spearheading award-winning parks and cafes, job training and placement systems, increasing the number of trees, and I acquired the antique Cass Gilbert designed rail station on Block 2741, Lot 1, which drew my father to the community in the first place. I'm now redeveloping that architectural jewel into an event hall called Bronxlandia that'll host performances, community events, film screenings, and photo shoots and art exhibitions. We've worked long and hard to get our building placed on the National Historic Register, during which time we discovered that the adjacent storefront building on Lot 60 is actually an illegal addition with no exterior wall or parapet. The good news is that it is, in fact, the exterior wall of the historic rail station has been protected from the elements for about half a century in its best preserved facade of the structure. My company has had 12 meetings over the past 3 years with MTA team members on the Penn Station Access Project to coordinate our efforts. The plans that were shared with us showed the Garrison Avenue entrance plaza on the corner of Lot 60. It was only recently that we were shown the current plan to use only Lot 50, which we object to for the following reasons. A plaza on the corner occupying all of Lot 60 will create a beautiful and more pedestrian-friendly opening on a busy intersection that's more visible and inviting than the plan for Lot 50. By placing the plaza on the corner of Lot 60, the bulk of Lot 50 is preserved as a developable property. We should expose train riders and the public at large to the Cass Gilbert Design Registered Historic Rail Station. And And when we expressed concern about the MTA's change of plans at our last meeting, the officials present suggested that we purchase Lot 60 and donate it to the MTA for the purpose of placing the entrance plaza there. This demonstrates that there are no engineering or feasibility obstacles to placing the plaza on Lot 60. The arbitrary move of the plaza conveyed a profound level of insensitivity to our community's needs and resources, as well as a lack of understanding of the decades of systemic racism that has led to the historic disinvestment and neglect that our low-income communities of colors have suffered from in terms of large-scale transportation and infrastructure projects.
Ms.
It's
Carter, please wrap up your remarks.
Absolutely. It was disturbing that an institution such as the MTA would even suggest the transaction, given the asymmetrical nature of the two parties involved. MTA should not continue the shameful history of treating low-income communities of color as less than. That they could look at me in our community and effectively say, go fetch us the property, and then we'll think about it, is inappropriate and reflects poorly on MTA leadership. The MTA can disregard us, keep the beauty we're working to preserve hidden from view, and continue the pattern of disregard in low-income communities of color, or the MTA can seize a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to support historic preservation, progressive urban design, and racial equity that will last for many decades. Please make the right choice.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. The next speaker we have this evening is Brian Rios.
Hi, my name is Brian Rios, and I live in a large housing complex called Boulevard Gardens, located on 54th and 31st Avenue, Woodside, Queens. This is a historic complex built in 1935 during the Depression as part of the Public Works Administration with private funds. It has a magnificently large courtyard and provides a small oasis in an urban area. This property is located close to and runs parallel to the Amtrak's Hell's Gate line, and that is why I'm here speaking tonight about the detrimental impact that Penn Station Access Project will have on Boulevard Gardens and will cause daily harm to the quality of life for our residents. This will also impact the resale and property value of Boulevard Gardens apartments, as we are a co-op. This project plans to increase service operations by adding a significant number of trains per day, approximately 120 on the Amtrak's Hell's Gate line. This will increase noise levels throughout the day and evening to Boulevard Gardens' quiet oasis. The residents at Boulevard Gardens only learned recently of this and its adverse effects. The goal of the Penn Station project is to increase commuter service from Westchester County and the Bronx to provide a direct line into Penn Station. While this is a good goal, MTA should not lose sight of the impacts it will have to the residents along this corridor, which hear loud noises from trains, including horns, day and night. In closing, I request that the MTA study the impacts of the Penn Station project, specifically on Boulevard Gardens and the surrounding areas of Woodside, Queens. I further request the MTA provide the necessary improvements required to mitigate the severe noise impacts of this project and to alleviate this burden and inconvenience placed on our residents' daily living. For example, sound barriers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Rios. The next speaker is Shanna Lucher.
Hi, my name is Shanna Lucher, and I'm speaking as a representative of Silwis LLC, which is owner on the property at Block 238, Lot 10, also 171 Huguenot Street in New Rochelle, also known as 20 Commerce Drive. Our building is leased to two businesses, Bell Aqua Pool Supply and WestMed Group. Each business has completely different entrances. On the Bell Aqua side, 20 Commerce Drive, the current plans would dramatically impact our building. We would welcome the opportunity to speak with anyone regarding this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mark Warshaw.
Good evening. My name is Mark Warshaw, CEO of Bell Aqua Pool Supply. We are located at 20 Commerce Drive, also known as Lot 10, 171 Huguenot in New Rochelle. We are a wholesale distributor that's been in business for 60 years, located in New Rochelle. We strongly do support the Penn Station Access Project, However, the plans for the property that we are located at, if not tweaked, will dramatically impact our ability to access our building and to run our business. We'd like you to review these plans specifically as it pertains to our property and reach out to us with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more time for Joe Rogers. Going once, going twice. Okay, thank you. Again, for our virtual speakers, if you are registered under a name other than what shows on the screen, or if you are calling in via a phone number, please let our team know in the Q&A so that they can unmute you when your name is called. Our first virtual speaker for the evening is Arthur Breedy.
Good evening. I'm speaking to you from Boulevard Gardens, as one of my shareholders spoke before. I currently serve on the board of directors for Boulevard Gardens in Woodside, Queens. I'm kind of disturbed that we're still talking about this project because we as a community voted together and we sent in a well-organized petition against this project, as it will have detrimental effects on our community, both environmental, social, and economic. Unfortunately, the gentleman spoke before, and it seems like he stated that there wouldn't be much of an impact, but I can tell you from the plan that I've seen and the things that we've gone over so far, it will definitely affect us, as some of what the contract does right now affects us. Going forward, I would like to see more of an outreach in our community, not just for Boulevard Gardens, as we are 9 apartments rich, but we also see houses, private houses, all along Amtrak's line. And these are properties that I know that the owners also only became newly aware of this project. So it seems like there was not enough outreach on this end. I know that this is mostly affecting Bronx and Westchester. That's all fine and well, but as you can see, there are some lots listed on your property that you're looking to seize, and I think that there needs to be at the least a couple of hearings out here in Queens, so we would have a proper way to voice our opinion and let you know our concerns, and perhaps we can work out something to benefit all parties. When things are affecting people's bottom line, their investments especially, as I'm sure anyone here in the room that has investments, you know, if someone is messing around with your investments, you take guard to that. You want to protect. You want to ensure that it's going to be there when you need it. I think the NTA needs to do more listening and not so much just hearing what's being said. They really need to get involved in these communities and see what their project is going to do. It's not only just the traffic of the trains, it's also the repairs. Any time of the night, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, you can get them out there doing work on the trains. I can only imagine what this project is going to bring in more amplified sound and noise. So I ask you to please revisit your environmental impact study, both social and economic, safety and security. Please revisit these reports and plan to have a sit down with us out here in Queens. That would be much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Judy Chestnut.
Hi, my name is Judy Chestnut. I'm also a resident of Boulevard Gardens. As a Queens resident, my husband and I simply don't understand why, much like the Cross Bronx Expressway, Queens is being used by the Penn Station Access Project simply as a pass-through with no benefit to Queens. There's not even one stop planned here. We are certainly not against better transit, especially for the Bronx. A friend of ours who lives in the East Bronx currently has to use Uber to get to and from his job in Queens, which gets pretty expensive. But if there were stops in Queens, even one stop, the project would provide Bronx, Westchester, and Connecticut residents direct access to Queens, and Queens residents direct access to those locations. Queens businesses would also benefit from additional customers. After all, New York City is more than just the borough of Manhattan. And I do have another concern. Although we've been assured this project has assessed air pollution, adding 120 trains per day to Amtrak's Hellgate line will greatly increase noise pollution. Fast-track maintenance and repair, which is done in the middle of the night, disturbing people's sleep, will also greatly increase due to extra wear and tear on the tracks caused by quadrupling the daily number of trains. Notwithstanding the soundproof windows you spoke of installing, this increased noise pollution will greatly lessen the quality of life for those in the Bronx and Queens who live along the rail line. Continual exposure to constant loud noise can cause stress, anxiety, depression, even high blood pressure and heart disease, not to mention severely limiting a good night's sleep and conversation with your neighbors. In addition, since cars, trucks, bars, and restaurants are held accountable for noise pollution, it is only fair that the MTA also be held accountable for keeping noise down to a specified decibel level. Unless this project also addresses noise pollution, it will violate the very spirit of the New York City Noise Code law. We should be working toward improving the quality of life in our communities, not lessening it. And it's not just the noise. Despite the vibration pads you mentioned, vibrations caused by construction and increased train traffic can still damage nearby buildings and homes, especially older buildings. These vibrations can adversely affect facades, walls, roofs, even foundations. But there are some possible remedies for these issues, like plexiglass tunnels that I'll be happy to discuss with the MTA. Please consider this. Otherwise, there will be little or no refuge for us, even in our parks. For instance, those trains will go directly over Astoria Park. A huge amount of money, $2.87 billion, has been made available for this project. So surely some of it can be used to lessen the noise pollution and the possible structural damage the project will cause, plus providing a benefit for Queens.
Ms. Chestnut, please wrap up your remarks.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chloe Mirzayi. Chloe Mirzayi. Okay, we'll come back to Chloe. Matthew Labanca. Again, for folks joining us via Zoom, if you do not see your name appearing as if the name you registered, please notify us in the chat so that we can update you and be able to activate your microphone and camera. I see Matthew is with us.
Hi, this is Matthew.
Hi, Matthew. Thanks for joining us.
My name is Matthew LaBanca. I live in the Boulevard Gardens in Woodside, aforementioned by several people on this at this conference for 22 years. The train tracks in question pass directly by our conference. They are extremely loud already. More traffic, 120 more trains per day would amplify a noise consideration to a relentless level of noise contamination. And it's not the typical glide of an average commuter train. I did a decibel meter reading today, both out my window, which is 300 feet away from the tracks, which faces the tracks, and up close to the tracks. And both times, the meter read at 90 decibel levels, and this is on par with a shouted conversation, on par with a rattling subway train, and standing next to a loud lawnmower. And for a frame of reference, this is louder than heavy highway traffic, which is closer to 80 decibel levels. The kind of barriers that barriers are provided to maintain a quality of life for surrounding neighbors. It's a twin set of tracks that has a crossover rail that's halfway between 30th Avenue and 31st Avenue. It connects the inbound and the outbound side at And that crossover track is the source of the high decibel level of noise pollution and the seismic vibrations that occur. You do not hear that same rattle north of the tracks or south on the tracks. You hear it right in the middle of our over 900 apartment complex. And it is a sound that literally stops everything. It stops conference calls for our homeowners, post-work quiet time, and most important, an uninterrupted sleep cycle, even through a closed window. People know the peace and the attractive nature of the gardens. Every Memorial Day, we host a slew of politicians here for our annual event, including Queensborough President Donovan Richards, Senator Mike Generis, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And they all come because they appreciate the value and strength of a community that cares so much for its surroundings and for its neighbors. And as good neighbors ourselves, we hope to be treated in kind by our neighbors, especially by those in charge of this MTA development. Our day-to-day quality of life here would drastically change if no measures of sound alleviation were taken. So how might alleviation look? The crossover track that I was talking about before could be relocated to another place on the track, not near homes, not near apartments, that would affect neighbors, and that would certainly make a difference in reducing the high decibel level. That crossover track, in my opinion, is the largest culprit of noise pollution. Eliminate that, relocate, and the rattle, the noise, the vibrations will drastically reduce. There are also new developments with sound barrier technology. Don't just bounce around sound in a concrete wall. They absorb sound instead.
Mr. LeBlanca? Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time. Our next speaker is Jenna Donnelly. Jenna Donnelly? Okay, Jenna will come back for you. Jill Infante. Jill Infante? Okay. Godfrey Hibbert. Again for Mr. Godfrey Hibbert. Moving on to Michael Meyer. Again, if you do not see your name on the screen, please notify our technicians in the chat, and they can update it so that you can be turned on both audibly and visually. Alexandra Stamalis. Yes, thank you.
I am also a Boulevard Gardens resident, and I'm not sure how much more I can say beyond what has already been said by my neighbors and friends from the garden. I understand the value of the project. I understand the benefit it brings to New York and bring increased commuter benefits, increased transit for some major areas. I think echoing again my neighbors, it's a shame that this is not meant to be moving some more either by station or by consideration of all the people living in improvements who are going to be affected by it. As has been already pointed out, the transit that we have right now going through these tracks are affects our communities here at Boulevard Gardens. Not only that, my own understanding is that Amtrak has unfortunately been remiss in addressing the current issues. It's my understanding from neighbors and colleagues that we actually had noise of remediation by a tree line that's planted some number of years ago, through an agreement made between Boulevard Gardens and Amtrak. And I think last year or the year before, there's 3 branches removed for theirs and not since replanted, thus further impacting the noise that we're dealing with and removing one key source of remediation that we had to mitigate that noise. And so not only would I ask Amtrak and the MTA to strongly consider what they can do, what they can do to make sure that residents here are able to sleep at night and live in their homes without disturbance like anyone else in New York can. But to also address the specific things that they hadn't been doing, but they said they would to mitigate noise already. Put these trees back, consider other barriers, really look at the options available to really improve the situation. And with that, I really can't say much more than what's already been said. I'm sure will continue to be said by others here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your time. Next, we have Ashley Levy. Ashley Levy. Okay. Jean McLean. Jean McLean. Next, we have Lisa Daglian. Lisa Daglian. Okay, we will circle back. Christina De Cuales. Oh, thanks, Lisa. Christina, we'll come back to you.
Takes a little while for it to unmute and get the camera going. So thank you for your patience. Good evening. I'm Lisa Dagley, and I'm the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTIRPCAC. And thank you for the opportunity to testify. Success is a long time in coming, and a long time in making, and we're thrilled it's coming to fruition. We appreciate Senator Schumer's help in bringing it closer to reality, but we do certainly appreciate the neighbors that we've heard this evening, and the concerns that they have and hope that these will be addressed. Penn access will involve the construction of 4 new ADA accessible Metro North stations in the eastern Bronx at Hunts Point, Parkchester, Van Ness, Morrisburg, and Co-op City, include infrastructure improvements along the route, and add new train service on the new Haven line to Penn Station. Today's eminent domain hearing is another step in the process of finally bringing rail access and new opportunities to residents who for too long have only been able to look at trains go by without stopping. Eminent domain is an unfortunate aspect of the project, but it is one that is apparently key to unlocking the next steps, and therefore we support the progress it will bring. We hope there will be appropriate financial remuneration to the parties involved. Penn Access offers the chance to equitably expand transit options for undisturbed areas and populations. In the case of Co-op City riders, it will shave an hour each way off their commutes. That's substantial enough to save lives. Commuter rail will finally be in reach of East Bronx riders, many of whom don't live anywhere near a subway. It's important to ensure it's financially within their reach as well. To truly make this new transit option equitable and move people out of express buses and cars, it's crucial that the MTA embraces expanding city commuter rail fare discounts, which transfers to subways and buses. It could be an expansion of Freedom Ticket or the City Ticket program to include transfers. But the draw of discounts, especially as congestion pricing comes online, will be key to our reform. Local entities function commercial entities, along with bringing new opportunities for local engagement. In locking the scope, we do support consideration of adopting and further expand the service, perhaps connecting to the department. This will also increase our work redundancy and connectivity, allowing people to transfer more easily to get around the region from the Penn Station on, similar to what Eastside Access Project will do for those traveling to and from Grand Central. We're pleased to support this project, including the progress that Eminent remains in for them. To call for implementation of the city commuter rail fare discount and transfers to subways and buses to encourage further review of in-stock and the mitigation efforts to commuters seeking mobility.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dagliam. Next up, we have Christina De Cuales.
Hello, thank you so much for the opportunity for us. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So my name is Christina De Cuales, and I am speaking on behalf of my Boulevard community here at Boulevard Gardens in Queens, and appreciate everyone's point of view as we are very keen on ensuring that there is progress and that there is a climate impact as well. But ultimately, as a colleague, a fellow resident mentioned so eloquently, it is a haven within our space. The train tracks is very, very near my window, and to my home office, which I use quite extensively. Today, with intermittent trains, we all experience disconnects and a lot of noise and sometimes interference in some of the electronics that we have. We do ask this committee to please very carefully examine and ensure that we are not devaluing what we have given as a very thriving and incredibly prolific community within here in Queens. Ultimately, we are supportive of progress, we're supportive of public transportation, but ultimately we need to understand the impact to 900 families in this haven of ours here in Queens. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Assembly Member Brian Barnwell. Assembly Member Barnwell. Okay, we'll come back for the Assembly Member. Next up, we have Sarah Joseph Donnelly.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for allowing us to talk this evening. I wanted to say that it was very hard to get into the Zoom meeting, so that might be why some folks are listening as you're going through and calling the names. I too am a resident of Boulevard Gardens, and as you've heard from all of my neighbors, we are a unique and vibrant community. We are multi-generational, we are multiracial, and we work together as co-ops do, which is such a unique and amazing part of New York City. What this proposal will do is deeply impact all of our lives. All of the young folks who are on part of this space, all of the kids, all of the adults. The train already, as we have heard, impacts us by shaping the buildings or driving to the track. I am not even in a building with timber they're next to the track, and I have to mute myself when I'm on Zoom and a train goes by. We have to pause the TV so we don't miss what we are hearing. Our windows do shake, and we're not the buildings that you identified as those that are being impacted in your environmental impact study. What I request is that you come see our space. You come see the vibrance and beauty that is true collective living. You see how amazing it is and how much we are already impacted by the train. I ask that you sit in the apartment of the folks who are directly next to the train and actually feel the building shake. I request that you hear what it sounds like in our buildings as they go by. And then I would like to see the environmental impact study and what we have in place to mitigate the noise pollution that will be impacting all of our community members. Like everyone else has said, of course, transportation is super important. It's also very important that you do not devalue the folks that are being impacted by this new development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Allison Gorman.
Good evening. My name is Allison Gorman, and I'm an architect at G&D Architecture in Manhattan. The project I'm currently working on is renovating the historic Cass-Gilbert rail station that is actually next to the new proposed Metro North Station in the Bronx Queens Point. In fact, the new station platform is actually designed to go directly below our building, which spans across the existing rail tracks. These two buildings will probably have greater impact on one another than any of the other surrounding buildings. I'm fully in support of this project, which is serving the community and has the unique chance to bring life to the corner of Huntsman Avenue and Garrison Avenue. There is an opportunity here for both of our projects, which would create a greater combined impact. The MTA sold Huntsman Station in the 1940s, and we're now turning into a community hub and event space, which will serve as a companion to the new station. These two buildings will look directly at each other, and both will introduce activity and welcome visitors to Huntsman. In order to create a sense of place in this new station, we encourage the design of an entry plaza, which serves as an extension of the station. This will require the use of the proposed acquired property at 1161 Garrison, as well as an additional property at block 2721, lot 60 at the corner of Garrison Avenue. Using this additional property, which was actually part of the project's initial plan, will allow for an extended corner plaza between the historic Hunts Point Station and the new Metro North Station. The benefits of this larger plaza include pedestrian protection from traffic, creating a community gathering space, and a safer entry into both buildings. Also, by removing these buildings, we are faced with the rare chance to expose the original fabric of the 1900s train station, which has not seen the light of day in decades. The open area will celebrate the interface of the new and historic stations back in the day. The common goal of both projects is to create a new French Orchard river, and Studio B is happy to assist the MTA in the design and development of this park. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bonnie Mutignani. Bonnie Mutignani. Okay. Hello? Bonnie? Yes, hello, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Mutignani. I'm another resident of Boulevard Gardens. Once again, Boulevard Gardens is a residential co-op in Woodside, Queens, that is home to over 2,000 residents. The eastern portion of our complex is within 100 feet of the Hellgate line. While we understand that connecting the Hellgate line to the existing new cable line at Warshaw will enable residents in the eastern portion of the Bronx, Connecticut, and Westchester to get to Manhattan in a fraction of the time it takes now, this has only adverse effects on our community and all neighborhoods and communities who border this Hellgate line. We will have to endure more years of track work than the noise and vibration of an additional 100 more trains failing down this line. This will only lower our property values and diminish our quality of life. We are asking for mitigation to help counter these adverse effects, such as sound barriers, soundproof windows, or even a Northern Boulevard station that will allow us direct access to the station. Because as it stands, there are no benefits to these residents from the adverse conditions.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joseph Vella. Joseph Vella. Mr. Vella, we can see you. Can you turn your mic on? Mr. Vella, can you unmute?
Hello, I don't know if I'm on.
Yes, you're on. You're on. Thank you, sir.
I guess I am. I'm Joe Vella. I'm another resident of Boulevard Gardens, and I want to say I do support this project, but as many of my neighbors have said, we're going to be really severely impacted here at Boulevard Gardens. And I just want to sort of advocate for the community here and urge Amtrak and the MTA to come out and engage not only with my neighbors here at Boulevard Gardens, but with the surrounding residents around the community. Because although maybe people in the Bronx have been consulted, I don't think we've had the engagement on Queens on this project. And as my neighbors have pointed out, we will not see any benefits to this. And I really would like to advocate for better noise mitigation efforts and really for a stop at Northern Boulevard. Previous iteration of this plan had stations at Ditmars and Northern Boulevard, which is very close. Northern Boulevard, that is very close to Boulevard Gardens. So if we could get some engagement from MTA and Amtrak and have some basic consideration for this project, so we could join in like our neighbors in the Bronx. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ashley Levy. Again, if your name appears on the screen as other than what you registered as, please notify us via the chat so that we can unmute you and we can turn on your camera. I'm going to cycle back through the names of those who were called but who did not respond in the event that they are on but otherwise not notified. Chloe Mirzayi. Jenna Tonelli. Jill Infanti. Godfrey Hibbert. Michael Meyer. Gene McLean. Adam Furstendig. There are several participants in the Zoom that are only identified by numbers. I'm going to call you by a number, and if it is, in fact, you, please identify yourself in the chat so that the team can unmute you. Number 2. Number 3. We have a 2. Yes, we can hear you. Can you please identify yourself? Sorry, your connection seems to be poor. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. We're going to go back and try Adam Furstendig. Adam, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am also a member, a shareholder at Boulevard Gardens. It was very hard to get into the Zoom meeting, the link was not working, so thank you for hearing me. I do not support this project. There is all kinds of noise all the time over here from the MTA. They show up unannounced, starting at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they start chainsawing trees, doing all kinds of work. All kinds of cars show up with all kinds of lights and sound, and it's very disturbing in the middle of the night when people are trying to sleep. So this is something that really needs to be carefully considered before it is executed. As we know, there's a large exodus from New York City anyway. I'm not sure that this is even needed. And if it is needed, we need to carefully consider the lives of the people that live near the train line. And we need to do things to remediate noise and to stop the earth from shaking around us and the buildings from shaking. I'd really like you to listen to the community here in Queens and figure out a way to benefit us, or just don't do the project at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ahir Kapaldas. Here, Gapaldas. Daniel Hunt. Is Daniel Hunt with us this evening? Al Laractra. Maria Pagan. Richard G. Leland. Dorothea Barulik. William Sequeria. Once again, if you put your name in the chat, if it's appearing as anything other than what's on your screen, we'll be able to unmute you. There are several participants in the Zoom who are not registered to speak, at least by our records, but if we don't have your name, we cannot unmute you. Sorry, in the Q&A, not the chat. Robert Ingenito. And again, also, if you are one of those individuals registered as a number, please let us know in the Q&A the name that corresponds with that number, and if you wish to speak, we'll make sure that we call you. David Budnetz. Calling Assemblymember Brian Barnwell one more time. Well, Charles, that's the list multiple times. Unfortunately, if folks have not been able to turn on or notify us, that's it for speakers for the evening.
Okay, if there are no additional public speakers, I'll now conclude this portion of the public hearing. As I mentioned at the outset of the hearing, this hearing will be kept open until 5:30 p.m. on July 8th, 2022, for the receipt of any additional written statements. Again, written statements may be submitted through the website listed in the hearing notice or by regular mail. If you were a public speaker, you still can submit a written statement if you wish. And thank you for bearing with us, particularly with the technology, and have a great night, everyone. Thank you.